Excited about today. This is our second annual Sula Too Authors Showcase. And we have an incredible lineup today. Oh my goodness, you just have no idea what's coming up. And it's going to be absolutely fascinating. So, again, I am Ersula Odom. I am the CEO of Sula Too, and we make old new in everything that we do, in that we capture and preserve legacy information in any form possible. And tonight, you're going to be talking to authors. And yes, there may be an opportunity for you to engage with them. And if not, later on, it'll be on YouTube and you'll be able to see and comment again later. But today it's on Facebook, it's on Zoom. And what I want you to really think of as you go through the presentations tonight is think about, who do you know that need to hear what is being said, read the books that have been written, and who can it help? Who will enjoy it, and who actually need it? And you'll hear different stories tonight from a lot of different vantage points. And you can feel free to ask questions in the chat room. But the first person that we're going to hear from tonight is Miss Rosetta Peacock. Now, Rosetta, are you going by your stage name?
No, it's fine.
Well,
Right?
we're going to talk about that too. So Rosetta has a wonderful connection for me. I'm in a special place in my heart, quite frankly, because she's friends with my daughters.
Oh,
Yeah. So she calls me mom, and that just thrills me. Thank you, baby.
you are
But this
so
is
welcome.
business. And this is why I love what I do, because it is business and it is pleasure. I get the pleasure of introducing to you Rosetta Peacock. And Rosetta, when you introduce yourself, tell us about your stage name and why, or your pen name, and why you chose that particular name.
Ooh, oh goodness. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. We did the first one last year and it was amazing. And I really enjoyed it, being able to talk about my book and being able to share and talk with your audience. So it was amazing. I So my name is Rosetta Peacock. Mandisa happens to be my middle name. It was obviously my mom worked really hard on giving me that name, and so there was a book that she was reading, and she saw this name in a book, and apparently just had to give it to me. And as I got older, the book stayed on our shelf, and whenever anyone would come over and they're like, oh, what is this book about? And my mom would open the book and be like, oh, look, it has my daughter's name in it. So she was really excited about it, being able to share with people that she got my name from a book. I,
And
and so when,
do you think that had something to do with the fact that you became an author and loved to write?
when I first started, it wasn't about writing for me. I loved reading. And I'll tell you, I just love being lost in books. I love getting lost in books, um, visualizing someone else's story, being in a different place, a different time, learning about characters, the highs and lows of a text was always my favorite. It wasn't until I got in high school that one of my high school counselors, I think it was, she just encouraged me to start writing. And so as I was going through, I think, some challenging parts of my life, writing was one of the things that helped get me through. And when I realized that I can kind of, unburden myself through writing, that's how this story came about.
Now, I'm going to respond to some of the things that you're saying because it's resonating with me. But
Of
continue
course.
telling your story, and I'll go back to this. I'll come back to it.
So I'm really, that's where this all came from. Like the book came from a journey that I needed to take. I didn't know that I needed to take that journey, but apparently God did. And therefore, the only way I knew how to get through it was to write. And I don't have them in here, but in my garage, there's a huge bin. And inside that bin is literally every journal that I've ever written in. except for one. I have moved half a dozen times, and in all of those moves, I've only lost one, and it was my very first one. But
Uh,
other than that, I have journals that date all the way back to probably high school. So writing is just, it's a part of me. It's what I do. Even now, when I'm working on a piece, because I blog a lot, and so therefore I write it by hand, and then I kind of go through it and I type it. But writing has always been, as far back as I can remember, a part of my life, a huge part of my life.
so you talked about needing to write to get through whatever you were going through at the time, and that resonated with me because there was one point in my life, and it was when my grandmother passed away, that I remember riding from Florida to Georgia in a huge Cadillac full of relatives. And I was the youngest thing in the car with no influence over anyone. I had my aunt who controlled the family, her oldest daughter, my mother, and their spouses, right? And here I am sitting there, grandmother's favorite, with no sense of ability to control anything at the moment. I was too outdone with these people. So I sat and I wrote every horrible thing I could think of in that piece of paper. And I stapled it and I put it away. Years later, I found that piece of paper. I am so glad I stapled it and put it away because I would have lost some family members. But I needed to say those things to myself at least, to vent and vent without harm. So writing saved me from destroying family member connections at that time because honestly it was through grief. It was just lack of control, total grief, and all I could do was write, and that's what I did. And it
And
got me through that moment.
that's what writing does. It's amazing the healing that you can get from writing. And at least that's the way I see it.
Hmm.
And being able to get out what is bothering you or hindering you or just in hurting you in any kind of a way. If speaking about it is not something that we can do, in that moment, writing about it is definitely a way to help. And I think it helped me in a variety of ways get through a very difficult time in my life. And again, that's how When It Rains, It Pours came about. And I'm just so thankful and grateful that, you know, my little baby is in book form now. I love her. I love her.
And I love her too. It was a wonderful read, really it
Thank
was.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So you reminded me that you and I had an interview a few years ago about journaling. So before we get off of your interview, I want to talk about that. But right now, tell everyone what When It Rains, It Pours really is about. What's the hook in the story?
So the hook in the story, it really starts at the beginning. And I think it's one of those things that, somewhere along the line we can all relate to. And it's the story of a 13-year-old girl whose parents are going through a divorce. And so the divorce is announced at the beginning of the book. And then the book follows her journey as she tries to navigate with the changes in her family, the changes in her parents, who she is now that, her parents are no longer together. And so it's really a journey of her finding herself and figuring out who she is and where she needs to be through all of the drama that her family is facing. And so, yep. So there you have it.
So who could really benefit from reading the story? Who do you think it really helps? Or what kind of feedback have you gotten from someone who did read it?
Well, the one thing that okay, so a lot of it's really about a family. So it's a family. It's a mom, a dad, obviously, this girl, and then she has siblings, and so it's really kind of like everyone has their own take on how this divorce is affecting them and how it's affecting their family. And one of the things that I got most from people who have read the story is that, oh, the mother in that story, oh, she was something else. Woo, if we could just leave her out, like we didn't realize she was that. And but I think that is I think that the part of the mom is the part of the story that gives it its true, like its depth and its meaning, because I think everyone can relate to a mom. So it's that, and then the father in the story trying to adjust to the fact that he no longer has a wife, or his family has kind of gone, and it's like, well, what do I do? Like, this is what I've known, this is what we've known, and so everybody's world is literally blown up, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate this new part of their lives, because no one ever expects it, it's like, but then there's all, it's the mom was the one who decided to pull out, so I can tell you that, but it was because of her feelings about what she was going through, and then how that ultimately affected her relationship with her kids and her relationship with her husband, and then yeah, so there you go.
Well, I have to tell you, I had some serious conversation with the mother in your book. It's like, oh my
I'm telling
God,
you, I people will
where did
tell me
she
like,
come
oh, it
from?
was great. I think, the daughter was good, and we loved her, and we understood what she was going through. But that mother, whoo, I don't know about that lady. So that was good.
Oh, nice, nice. So, what are your plans? Are you writing anymore?
So really, I focus a lot on blogging, because I feel like I have a, a lot to say, and it's not contained. So when it rains, it pours. That I was able to contain, because it was like that was my focus at the time. But now that I've had a variety of experiences and things that I'm going through now, or things that I feel like I can help people relate to as we go, I do more blogging. I have started an intro to another book, which I think I could probably get that one done. Um, but I definitely think that the blogging has kind of taken on a life of its own, and that's where my focus is mostly right now.
Okay. Well, there's something coming up on the 27th that I'll have to talk to you about because you may have a gold mine just in the blogs that you've already done. And the way that you
Thank you.
write, oh my goodness. I love the way that you
The
write.
blogs are amazing. I love
Yeah.
blogging. It just, it gives me an opportunity to kind of like, you know, focus on one little snippet of something and really kind of develop that, like hit it and then move on to something else. So
Hmm.
I have so many stories and thoughts and so many scraps of paper next to me, which you can't see on my desk, but there's like a lot of little scraps of paper where if I'm sitting here and I'm working and I'm like, oh, that's something I could write about. Oh, that's something I could write about. So yeah. So blogging helps me to get all of that out without having to kind of like focus on one storyline or structure of writing.
Wow. And I've discovered a tool that would really help you with that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you're sparking all kinds of things that okay, I need to write that down because she needs to know about that. Um,
Yes, gotta send
all
it to her.
right. So those of you that have joined us in the chat, do me a favor. Let Rosetta know who could benefit from her book. And I want you to jot down on a piece of paper or whatever tool you use who in your life could benefit or enjoy a story like that. Now, is there a particular age group that you think would work best in terms of understanding this, or is it across generations?
I think it could be across generations, because I think if it's someone who's had that experience, previously, and I've had various people, ages that run the gamut that have read the book and that have given me great feedback about how they were able to relate to the mom, the daughter, the dad, the brother, the sister, some aspect of the book. And that's what I love about it. I think that it's one of those things that it could just reach a gamut of people. You know, it's a good story. It's a good family story that I think many people in many walks of life could relate to.
Okay, I asked you, well, I said I was going to come back to this particular thing. You and I talked about journaling at one point in time because
Oh,
when
journaling.
I know you do, I started my first journal in 11th grade because of an English teacher. She asked us to do that as an assignment. And the very first line in that journal says, "Today we've been asked to start a journal and a scrapbook, really. And I think I'm going to like this." That's what I actually wrote. And to this
Yeah,
day, I have a shelf full of chronological journal types of things because our lives turn into a soundbite when we try to remember it. But if you pick
yeah.
up a journal that you've written and go back and read through, it's amazing
It
the
really
thing.
is. I wrote about this on one of my blogs, about the fact that like there are times, I don't know, it just depends if I'm out cleaning the garage or looking for something. It's like I'll see that bin and it's almost like it's calling me, like just come, and then I'll just kind of dig down in there. I try not to pull the same one out, but I just dig down in there, put my hand on one. And there are so many times when my husband's come out in the garage and I'm just sitting there with a journal in my hand. He's like, "Oh, you're in your journal. You're gonna be here for a while," because one of the great things is that you get to see your journey in your life and you get to see where you've traveled from. And there are things where I was just like being a homeowner. You know, it was one of those things that I dreamed about and I talked about, but it was like, I don't know, you know. Um, it's kind of tough, you know, when you're a teacher or a single mom and you're trying to make things work and things are just not coming out the way you want them to. So it's like 10 years ago, I was writing about my dream of owning a home one day and that sort of thing. And here I am now, you know, I'm a homeowner. So it's like you get to see that transition. And I think for me personally, what it does is it encourages me to keep going. And it's like, you know, if I did that, this next dream that I have or this next thought that I have, then I can do that too. So I love going back and just picking up one and reading through it and just kind of seeing where I was at that point in my life and the changes that I made and the impact that I've had on, you know, just not myself but other people. Because of course my family's in my journals, my friends are in my journals, like, you know, I've had the same best friend for 38 years, so she's in there a lot. My husband's in there a lot. So it's like it's great to be able to go back and just see that journey. It just, for me, it's encouraging. It's really encouraging.
Well, two things. When you said who's in your journal, I think back on the first time I shared one of my journals with somebody who actually is in it. I took it was half journal, half scrapbook, and I took it back to my college for a college reunion. And I started reading through the thing, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Jerry, look, you're in here!" And the look of horror on Jerry's face, she didn't know what I had in that journal. And Livonia, yeah, I'm talking about Jerry Cotton.
Yeah,
Because I know she's on. I mean, one of our classmates are on tonight, and it was at that moment that I realized I did not write things that were bad.
yeah.
Hey, Livonia, I see you
Oh,
laughing. Okay,
hi.
so
Yeah.
I realized that I did not write about bad things. I wrote about things that were inspirational. So at that moment, Jerry had actually inspired me in some way.
Yeah.
And however, people have no idea what you're writing about, and it's your choice to write what you want because this is your life, and you're interacting with some paper that will motivate you later on. And whether you share it with someone else is up to you.
Right.
Yeah. So, oh, and then the final thing that you made me think about, and I was looking around, totally tacky, but I was looking around seeing if I could see it because I'm in the process of moving things around so that I can, purge and sort and and organize and what have you, going through and finding out what I don't want anymore. And I came across one of those little things that could be a journal, even though I wasn't thinking like that, but that's
Mhm.
what it ends up being. The very first time I went to a storage auction, it was
Yeah.
before storage wars. They didn't exist at that time. And I was looking for things to resell in an antique shop. And every advertisement that I found, I put into this book. So
Yeah.
every auction I went to was chronicled by my cutting it out and pasting it in this little flip chart. Not flip chart, but this notebook. And it was a lot of pages. And I indicated what I bought, what I didn't buy, and it's a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot in time. Oh, Livonia has a question. She says, "Do you ever not write something for fear someone would see it?"
So I've been through that. My son, I've had the amazing privilege to raise six kids. I have one. My my son, who I gave birth to, is 28, and my grandson will be 2 years old tomorrow. So I'm so
Oh,
excited.
Oh, wow.
Um,
no
but
way.
I've
Yeah, she looks young, doesn't she?
well, he and then I have two grandchildren. The oldest one is 5, and then the baby is going to be 2 tomorrow. But my journals are packed away, and I have always thought, like, do I throw them away? Do I keep them? So they're out there in the garage, and I told my son, if anything ever happens to me, do what you will. It's like I have nothing to hide. I think that I've gotten over the part where I feel like someone might be highly offended by something that I wrote. I mean, I don't think that I write anything that's bad. And when I am writing, I think about other people's feelings and how they may perceive things. But I write in a way that I feel like I can, tell my own truth and be okay with that. And I feel like whoever, if at some point whoever finds them, if when I leave this earth, that if they know me, and they know who I am, and I've always been upfront and honest um, with my family and my friends, that they'll know what was written out of love, kindness, and me being able to just express myself in a way that I felt I needed to. So I not really fearful. So I don't think that I'm fearful of writing anything.
Well, I have come across some journals from years past. In fact, I have letters from a couple that wrote to each other from separate locations in 1904 to no 1897 through 1904, sometime around there. And they did not withhold anything because they were writing to each other, and it just so happens it got into the public domain. But it's really a wonderful look back into what times were like during their time frame.
Yeah.
Now, things they talk about, I had to look up. One little sickness that the person had is like, what in the world is that? And they called it a car. It was a carbuncle. Oh,
Never
what's
heard of
that?
it.
Yeah, it's a boil. It's a thing that you have to pop. Now,
Yeah.
too much information. But anyway, it was a window into the past. So what we fear writing today just becomes something of interest later on.
And
Um,
I will say that, my the story kind of travels. So when I write, I don't know about when anybody else writes. When I write, there are, aspects of my life that I feel like, okay, this would be a good fit right here. And what I have to explain to people when they ask me, well, is a lot of this stuff in here true? Is this a true story, or, so there are parts of my book that are similar, I will say, to things that happen in my family. But a lot, and then you elaborate. So you have to add details. You have to add, interesting things, interesting facts to fill out a story to make it, relatable. And so my mom has since passed away. So she had passed away before this book was published. But my great aunt, um, she's like, hey, send me a copy of your book. I heard you wrote a book. I want to read it. And so I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if she'd be able to pick up on some of the family dynamics of things that happened, in our family and kind of be like, wait a minute, that sounds like that time when we went. So that was a little, a little scary, I think, for the most part, but she loved it. I got great
Uh,
feedback from her and my aunt and a lot of my other relatives. So, I did have an aunt that was like, wait, that sounded a little familiar. And I was like, well, no, auntie, it was just me kind of elaborate a little bit. It's not about the family. It was good. So,
and,
yeah.
and then who knows? It might be that when they find themselves and know that they're incognito, they might get a real pleasure out of knowing that it was
Like,
worthy of being put
hey,
into a book. Hey, that
yeah,
was
like
me, but you
she
didn't know it.
she wrote about me. She just doesn't want me to know it.
Yeah. All right. So this is a lot of fun, and we could go on, but there are a lot of people that want to get on and tell about their story tonight too, and I can't wait for them as well. Any parting words, and then we'll go on to the next person. Uh, Website.
So, website, I will type it in the chat. If I can remember, I will type it in the chat so that we can have it.
Okay. And
Um,
also, I will be sharing a PowerPoint where people can buy your book. Now, this would be a great Christmas present or summer reading for every person in your family.
I put that up. I put it in the wrong spot, but I'll do it again.
Okay. So we'll put that out. Um, Danielle, if you could repeat it in Facebook as well, that'd be cool. All right. So thank you, Rosetta.
You are so
And
welcome. Thank you. I didn't get to tell really the story about how this book came
oh,
to
well, go
be, but
ahead. I mean,
well,
real
no, I
quickly.
know you gotta move on, but I really appreciate all that you've done to help me become a writer. I've had this book, like, and it was in a notebook, it was on a thumb drive, it was on my computer for what, 20 years? Was it 20
No.
years? I think it
Oh
was
my
20
goodness.
years before Miss Ursula got it and put it in the pages of this wonderful book. So this was my baby, and I carried it around with me for, I think, 20 years before I met Miss Ursula. And we happened to be at a birthday party, and her daughter's birthday party, as a matter of fact, a few years ago. And we started talking about, I don't even know what, and somehow publishing came up, and I was like, oh, I've had a book for so long. And she's like, oh, well, send it to me, and we'll see. And as a result of that conversation, I think it was probably less than a year later, this little baby was born, and I have enjoyed it ever since. So, yep, quick
Uh,
story about how she got here.
and that's why I do what I do. I
Yes,
love that
love it,
new
love it,
author
love it.
feeling.
Yes, amazing,
All
amazing,
right.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
What I was going to say here is that as you listen to each person, you can purchase the book by going to bit.ly and this code that you see here. All of them are the same. So write it down, and when you're ready, you can go to that location and buy 10 books. Not just one, 10. Because a whole lot of people need to hear or enjoy what you've just heard tonight so far from Rosetta. And again, I want you to think about who needs this help, who could enjoy it, or who okay, who could it help and who needs it. There's a big difference there. Someone that it would benefit, but who really needs it.